There's something dangerous about being too flawless, not just in appearance, but in how people perceive your life, your skills, your wins.
Absolutely. That's what makes Law 46 so sharp. Greene doesn't say don't be great, he says never appear too perfect.
Because perfection creates distance, and distance breeds resentment. People don't admire gods, they envy them.
And envy is quiet. It doesn't show itself in the moment. It builds, it lingers, and one day it explodes, usually when you least expect it.
That's why so many powerful people fall from grace, not because they failed, but because they succeeded too visibly.
They shined too bright, and in doing so, they triggered something ancient in others, the desire to see the mighty stumble.
It's not just human nature, it's survival psychology. When someone seems untouchable, others feel invisible, and invisibility breeds revenge.
So what does this law teach us? That it's not enough to be strong. You have to disguise your strength. You have to leave cracks, signals of relatability.
And that's where people get it wrong. They think power means being untouchable, but true power knows when to appear touchable.
Exactly. You let others see your flaws, not your real weaknesses, but carefully chosen imperfections, things that make you seem more human.
Like laughing at your own mistake, admitting a harmless failure, sharing a struggle that's already been overcome.
Those little gestures, they disarm envy. They make people root for you instead of waiting for you to fall.
Because envy doesn't attack the weak, it attacks the untouchably strong, the ones who seem like they've never suffered.
So if you want to protect your position, don't shine at full wattage. Leave some mystery, leave some shadow.
That's not dishonesty, that's strategy. And in the world of power, perception is more dangerous than truth.
Think about how many public figures, celebrities, or CEOs we've seen rise and then suddenly fall, not because they messed up, but because they seemed untouchable.
Exactly. The public starts out in awe. Then, slowly, admiration turns sour. It becomes, why them? Why not me? And eventually, let's watch them fall.
That's envy at work. Quiet, invisible, corrosive. Greene is right. It doesn't confront you, it waits.
And that's what makes it so hard to manage. You don't always see it coming, especially when you're doing everything right.
It's ironic, isn't it? The more perfect you appear, the more isolated you become, the less room you leave for others to relate to you.
Which is why perfection is often a liability in the power game, because power isn't just about performance, it's about perception.
And people want to see themselves in their leaders, not just the wins, but the flaws, the mistakes, the humanity.
Exactly. When someone appears too perfect, it activates something primal: insecurity, self-doubt, inferiority.
And those emotions don't stay quiet. They look for release, and that release often comes in the form of criticism, sabotage, or passive resistance.
We see it in politics. Candidates who seem too polished are labeled fake. Too ideal, people don't trust them.
Even if their record is spotless, even if their policies are solid, the perception of perfection becomes untrustworthy.
Because people assume no one can be that clean, and once doubt sets in, trust erodes, not from truth, but from projection.
So what do powerful people do? The smart ones, they manage envy. They learn to regulate how they're seen.
They sprinkle flaws into their public image. They laugh at themselves. They take small losses in public intentionally.
Not because they're weak, but because they're tacticians. They know that controlled vulnerability is armor.
And Greene's warning is clear. If you don't humanize yourself, the world will dehumanize you, and then come for you.
So the lesson isn't be less excellent, it's hide some of that excellence. Share it slowly. Let people catch up.
We often think envy only lives in public spaces, fame, politics, media, but the truth is, envy is most lethal close to you.
In your workplace, in your circle, even in your team. The colleague who claps for you in meetings but undermines you in private, that's envy unspoken.
And it doesn't come from you doing something wrong. It comes from you doing too much right, too visibly, too fast, too clean.
People can forgive your failures, What they struggle to forgive is your consistent success.
Especially if that success reminds them of their own stagnation. That's when your image becomes an emotional trigger.
That's why this law is so important inside any power structure, not just for leaders, but for anyone who's on the rise.
Because the higher you go, the more your presence becomes symbolic. People start attaching their own insecurities to you, whether you want them to or not.
And here's the catch. Even if you're kind, generous, collaborative, it might not matter. Your image becomes the threat.
So what do? You scale back how you present your wins. You share credit. You let others shine beside you, even if you led the way.
That doesn't mean hiding your value. It means distributing the spotlight strategically.
Exactly. When you win, make it feel like we won. When you succeed, let people see themselves in that success.
This is why some of the most powerful people appear approachable. It's not accidental, it's designed.
They know how to look human, even if they're operating 5 levels above the room. That's how they stay in the room without being targeted.
Because once envy fully forms, it turns into sabotage, silent resistance, withholding support, or even open opposition, justified by false flaws.
And if your image was too perfect, the accusations feel believable. People want to believe them. It feeds their narrative.
So managing perception isn't vanity, it's defense. It's knowing the psychology of those around you and how your presence affects them.
In the game of power, perception is pressure, and if you appear too far above, you become a symbol people want to pull down.
History is full of people who fell, not because they failed, but because they stopped appearing human.
Think of Marie Antoinette. She wasn't overthrown because of policy. She became a symbol of detachment, luxury, perfection, and people resented it.
Even if half the rumors weren't true, they didn't matter. The image was enough. The people needed someone to blame, and her flawlessness made her the perfect target.
Exactly. That's the danger Greene is warning us about. When your life looks too smooth, too untouchable, it stops inspiring and starts provoking.
It becomes a mirror, not of who you are, but of what others lack. And what people lack, they often want to destroy.
Now, contrast that with someone like Abraham Lincoln. Brilliant, strategic, but always aware of how he appeared. He shared doubts. He joked about his flaws.
And people loved him for it, not just because he was smart, but because he made space for their own imperfections through his own.
That's strategic vulnerability. It's the ability to be admired without triggering envy.
And that's not easy, especially in a culture obsessed with status, polish, and optics.
But that's exactly why it works. In a world of filters and curated lives, authenticity disarms people. It creates connection and protects your power.
So, if you're a leader, creator, or public figure, this law is a shield. It reminds you, don't outshine people so much that they want to see you fall.
And if you're rising through the ranks, it's even more important, because early envy is subtle. It looks like praise, but feels cold underneath.
That's why power isn't just what you achieve, it's how your achievements affect the room. If you don't manage that effect, it will turn on you.
So ask yourself, where am I shining too bright? Where can I let others see a little of the process, not just the result?
Because showing the climb makes your success feel earned. And when people feel it's earned, they respect it, not resent it.
And that's how you stay at the top, not by being perfect, but by being strategically imperfect. Let's flip it for a second. What if the danger of appearing too perfect isn't just external? What if it's internal too?
You mean the pressure of having to maintain that illusion?
Exactly. When you craft an image of flawlessness, you trap yourself inside it. You stop being allowed to make mistakes, even small ones.
And that's a kind of prison, a reputation so airtight it suffocates you. Because the second you slip, it's not just a mistake, it's a scandal.
And psychologically, that wears you down. You start performing your life instead of living it. You measure every move, not out of intention, but out of fear.
That's why this law is also liberating. It gives you permission to be real, strategically. to let go of the myth and build something sustainable.
Because no one can carry the burden of perfection forever. It's too heavy, and eventually it breaks you or isolates you.
But when you embrace imperfection, publicly and privately, something shifts. People connect with you more, and you connect with yourself more.
It becomes easier to lead, to build, to collaborate, because now you're not protecting an illusion, you're managing a reality.
And the irony? That kind of grounded leadership often looks stronger than the polished mask ever did.
Because people trust what they can see, not just the victories, but the vulnerability behind them.
It's the same in any relationship of power. The mentor who shares their old failures builds more trust than the one who only speaks in success stories.
The CEO who admits uncertainty in a crisis creates more alignment than the one who pretends to have every answer.
Because strategic vulnerability isn't weakness, it's control. It says, I'm strong enough to let you see this, and I trust you enough to show it.
And that trust, that transparency, is what makes people defend you instead of doubt you.
So maybe the real perfection isn't in being flawless, it's in knowing when and how to reveal the flaw.
So, if we look at this law again, it's not about dimming your light, it's about adjusting the brightness to fit the room.
Exactly. You don't stop being excellent. You just stop being untouchable. You give people a reason to relate, not just admire.
And the way to do that isn't by faking flaws, but by choosing which parts of your journey you allow others to see.
That's a critical distinction. Strategic imperfection doesn't mean weakness. It means emotional intelligence.
And it's not just about protecting yourself from envy, it's about creating connection, trust, loyalty.
Because people follow strength, but they stand with people who remind them of themselves.
So whether you're in business, leadership, politics, or just social dynamics, this law matters. It's the difference between power that inspires and power that isolates.
Let's bring it down to a question for everyone listening. Where in your life are you holding up an image that's too perfect?
And what would happen if you lowered it just enough for others to breathe around you?
Maybe they'd stop watching you from a distance and start walking with you.
That's the point. Power doesn't mean being above. It means knowing when to stand beside.
Which makes this one of the most human and the most dangerous laws in the book.
Next week, we enter the fire. Law 47. Do not go past the mark you aimed for. In victory, learn when to stop.
It's one of the hardest to follow, because when we're winning, that's when we're most tempted to keep pushing.
And that's where people lose everything, not in failure, but in overreach.
Until then, protect your power, but don't polish it too hard. A little roughness might be exactly what keeps it alive.
See you next time.